Am I the a-hole for orchestrating a decade-long scheme to bankrupt my family after they stole my inheritance and left me for dead? Throwaway account for obvious reasons. This is a long one, so grab a snack. For context, I, 35, male, grew up in what appeared to be a picture-perfect upper-class family. My father was a renowned surgeon, my mother a philanthropic socialite, and my older brother, Julian, 38, male, the golden child destined to inherit the family empire. I was the quiet, artistic one, often overlooked, but I didn't mind. I had my own dreams, my own passions, and a trust fund from my eccentric grandmother that was supposed to kick in on my 25th birthday. This trust fund, mind you, was separate from the main family wealth and explicitly designated for me. Grandma Evelyn, bless her eccentric soul, foresaw the vultures. When I was 23, I got into a severe car accident. A drunk driver T-boned the vintage Mustang. I woke up in a hospital bed, broken and bruised, but alive. Or so I thought. My family, upon hearing the news, rushed to my side. They seemed concerned, distraught even. Julian held my hand, my mother cried, my father sternly interrogated the doctors. I truly believed they loved me. However, things started to get weird. They insisted on moving me to a private recovery facility outside the city, citing privacy and better care. I was heavily medicated, my perception muddled, but I remember signing documents. They said it was for my medical treatment, for insurance. I trusted them. How could I not? They were my family. The facility turned out to be less of a recovery center and more of a gilded cage. I was kept isolated, my phone confiscated, and visits from friends were strictly prohibited. They told me my friends had moved on, that they were too busy with their own lives. They spoon-fed me a narrative of abandonment, of me being a burden. My condition, though improving physically, deteriorated mentally. I fell into a deep depression. Then came the bombshell. On what should have been my 25th birthday, I overheard a hushed conversation between Julian and my father. They were celebrating, not my birthday, but a successful acquisition. Julian laughed about the idiot believing anything we told him, and my father chuckled, saying Evelyn's money was always meant for the family, not some naive artist. My blood ran cold. I pressed my ear against the flimsy wall, piecing together fragments of their conversation. They had forged my signature on documents, declared me legally incapacitated, and drained my grandmother's trust fund, every single penny. They had bought me time, waiting for my 25th birthday, the activation date of the trust, to make their move. The car accident had merely provided a convenient excuse, a perfect opportunity to isolate me and execute their plan. They even discussed selling the facility soon, implying I would be moved to an even more secluded, cheaper institution once they were done with my assets. I wasn't just broke, I was effectively erased. That night, something inside me snapped. The depression morphed into a burning rage, a cold, calculated fury. I wasn't just going to get out, I was going to make them pay, every single one of them. It took me another 6 months to feign enough recovery to convince them I was ready for a less restrictive environment. They moved me to a smaller, less secure group home, believing I was still docile, still broken. That was their first mistake. I used the limited internet access to research, to plan. I discovered the full extent of their betrayal. Not only had they stolen my inheritance, but they had also spread rumors that I had succumbed to drug addiction, that I had squandered my grandmother's money, and that they, in their boundless generosity, were still caring for me out of pity. My friends, those who hadn't given up, genuinely believed I was lost to addiction. My escape was meticulously planned. I saved every penny from the meager allowance they gave me, bought a burner phone, and contacted a former art professor who had always believed in me. I told him a heavily edited version of the truth, enough to secure his help without revealing the full depth of my family's treachery. He arranged for me to stay with a distant relative of his in another state, far from my family's influence. For the next 10 years, I vanished. I changed my name, cut off all contact with my old life, and immersed myself in building a new one. I started small, selling my artwork online, taking commissions, and investing every spare dime into learning about finance, business, and most importantly, the intricate web of my family's financial dealings. I devoured books on corporate law, studied market trends, and even took online courses in forensic accounting. I was no longer the naive artist. I was a ghost with a vendetta. My family, meanwhile, thrived. Julian, with the help of my stolen inheritance, expanded their business ventures, dabbling in real estate, tech startups, and even a chain of high-end art galleries, ironically. My father continued his medical practice, and my mother continued her socialite charade, all while living in the lap of luxury, funded in part by my grandmother's legacy. They believed I was either dead or permanently institutionalized, a problem conveniently swept under the rug. The revenge, when it finally came, was a masterpiece of slow, agonizing destruction. Phase 1. Infiltration. Using my new identity and a carefully constructed professional persona, I began investing in companies that were either competitors or potential partners of my family's various enterprises. I built a reputation as a shrewd investor, a quiet force in the market. I made a point of never directly interacting with them, always operating through proxies, through layers of shell corporations and blind trusts. Phase 2. Undermining. I started subtly manipulating the market. I would buy significant shares in their key competitors, then, at opportune moments, leak damaging but truthful information about my family's questionable business practices to the press or regulatory bodies. Think minor environmental violations suddenly becoming front-page news, or questionable accounting practices in their real estate dealings mysteriously discovered by an anonymous whistleblower. These were small jabs, but they chipped away at their reputation, their stock prices, and their carefully curated public image. Phase 3. The trap. This was the most crucial part. My family, being greedy and arrogant, always sought to expand. They were particularly interested in a rapidly growing tech startup that held a patent for a revolutionary new medical device. A device, coincidentally, that I had secretly funded and nurtured from its inception. They approached the startup with an offer to acquire it. The startup, which was subtly controlled by my proxies, played hard to get, driving up the price. My family, desperate to get their hands on this valuable patent, stretched themselves thin, taking out massive loans, leveraging their existing assets to the absolute maximum. They were so blinded by the potential profits that they didn't see the elaborate web I had woven around them. The final act occurred last month. Julian, confident and smirking, finally secured the acquisition. They celebrated, thinking they had pulled off their biggest coup yet. But the terms of the acquisition included a clause that triggered a massive debt repayment if certain performance metrics weren't met within a very short time frame, metrics that I, as the silent puppeteer, knew they could never achieve. The moment the ink was drawn, I unleashed the hounds. I flooded the market with negative information about their other ventures, exposed a major scandal in their art galleries selling forged pieces, and most devastatingly, initiated a series of lawsuits from the employees of the newly acquired tech startup. Lawsuits were legitimate, based on their actual unethical practices during the acquisition process, but they were timed to perfection. Their stock plummeted. Their lenders called in their massive loans. Their once loyal investors fled in droves. Their empire, built on lies and my stolen future, began to crumble. Julian, in a desperate attempt to save face, sold off their most valuable assets at fire sale prices, including my childhood home, which I then discreetly bought back through another shell company. The final blow came when regulatory bodies, armed with irrefutable evidence I had meticulously gathered over the years, launched a full-scale investigation into their entire corporate structure. My father's medical license is now under review, and Julian is facing multiple counts of fraud and insider trading. My mother's charitable foundation has been exposed as a tax dodge, and her social standing has evaporated. They are ruined, financially, socially, and reputationally. Everything they stole from me, everything they built on my destruction, has been stripped away. They are living in a small rented apartment, battling creditors and lawyers, their lives in shambles. I, on the other hand, am thriving. My art career has taken off, my investments have flourished, and I have found genuine happiness with friends who never gave up on me, even when my family tried to paint me as a monster. I haven't revealed my true identity to my family. They don't know it was me. They just know they've been systematically destroyed by an unseen hand. Some of my new friends, whom I have told a heavily redacted version of the story, omitting the full depth of my family's treachery, think I